took a bus to meet me in a bar in a Tuscan hill, or sight I'd never seen. I believe in God still, but you wouldn't be able to stop me if I feel like running away. Wouldn't be able to stop me if I didn't want to stay. And the rain fell on the houses, and the rain fell on the trees. It fell its fiercest on the skulls of the willingly deceived. They put money in their hearts and God where their mouth is. They put money in their hearts and God.
Beginning the year with Laura Marling. You could do a lot worse. And yes, poor Mr. McPants, he had to go find that song. And there's a live version you can find very easily. This is the album version, and it's really good. All right, never mind about that. So we're about to do an all-call show. We've already got 2 calls up on the board. It's called Ask or Tell Me Anything. You can call. I'm talking to you. There's no bar you have to clear other than actually being able to dial a phone. 888-720-WNPR. 888-720-9677. You don't have to talk about the hot topics that are transfixing the nation right now, although you can. Let's talk about something eclectic or eccentric or esoteric. And so let's get going with that, and we are going to begin with Tom in Milford. Hi, Tom. You're on the air. And Tom, I can't hear you, man. Here, I'm going to put him on hold for a second, see if we can figure that out. And we'll try somebody else. We will try Anthony in New Haven. Hi, Anthony. You have the floor. Okay, I think we might have a technical problem here. So can you guys try to figure out what's going on, Cat and Pants? And we will try to figure out, and don't hang up, Anthony and Tom. We will try to figure out why you're not coming up here. But meanwhile, while that's happening, okay, so this is the part. This is the part where I kill time a little bit while we work on that. So, and I will. So, a couple of things. One of them is, New Year's resolutions are kind of dumb, except that if you say that they're dumb, then you're sort of saying that you don't think there's anything where you need to improve, right? And for me, it's kind of the opposite. My only reluctance about New Year's resolutions is, when do I stop? There's like so many areas where I need to raise my game. So, one of the things that I've decided to do is to become more organized. And over the last month or two, we at our house kind of emptied out this guest bedroom based on the idea that we don't expect to ever have guests again. And then we turned it into my new office, and it's really nice. And it has allowed me to get more organized. Having said that, I came here today without the iPad that I have to use to do the show. Now, fortunately, today, because it's an Ask or Tell Me Anything, there's essentially nothing on the iPad. But in terms of like my first day as being a more organized person, this is not so great. All right, I'm going to try again and see what happens if the calls come up. Oh, I'm being told the callers can't hear the show either. That's not good. All right, let's try it again. See what happens. Tom from Milford, how's it going this time? No, I don't think so. All right. So we may be a DEFCON 1. We may have a major show emergency here. I would track down Gina Amatruda immediately if he can be found. So I won't give out the phone numbers for a while, and we'll try to figure all this stuff out. So a couple of things. One of the things I like about this show when we do it and when we can actually get the calls on the air is that it's people rarely do call up about the kind of the hot take topics of the day. However, I'm going to mention one or two things that are going on right now that are pretty big, and obviously the story of Damar Hamlin is what we all went to bed to last night, and it's sort of an example of some of the hazards of like looking at your phone before you go to bed. I mean, obviously, the real hazard is to this poor young man, and I'm assuming everybody knows about this, but he in the middle of a football game last night, Monday Night Football. He was in the process of tackling a receiver, and it didn't look like a particularly sharp collision by NFL standards, by any other standards it would be, and he fell over. And then they spent, I think, roughly 8 minutes using CPR there right on the field. And then they took him to a hospital, and we don't really know exactly what's going on right now, and it would be rude to speculate. Although, one thing that I would say about this is that almost every cardiologist and trauma specialist who watched this happen was guessing it was something called commotio cordis, which actually means agitation of the heart. That's literally how you translate it, but it's blunt force trauma to the area right above the heart, and it actually sort of knocks the heart out of its rhythms, as I understand it. And one reason for optimism, and maybe we're grasping at straws right now, is that Christian Pronger, who was a very, very high draft choice for the Whalers in this very city where I sit, experienced exactly the same thing. He was, I think, a slap shot went into his chest, and he fell over on the ice. And after being treated, he came back and enjoyed a very long and celebrated hockey career. So, we're kind of hoping for the best here. But it is one of those things where you kind of re-examine all of your own priorities, and you think about, why am I watching this sport? I'm a football fan. I watch NFL games, and I know a lot of reasons why I shouldn't. But I watch them anyway. And I mean, I can come up with reasons why it's okay to do that, but they're all going to sound like rationalizations. Anyway, I also want to tell you about the Mr. Carp envelopes, which we may be deploying sooner rather than later. Usually we have a rule where you have to ask me to open a Mr. Carp envelope. And I usually have a code word that I give out, which I might do today. But let me tell you about the nature of these. So Mr. Carp is somebody I went to college with. He's one of my dearest friends from college. So we met like 47 years ago. And Mr. Carp graduated from Yale University in 3 years, Phi Beta Kappa and summa cum laude. And he wasn't in the library the whole time either. I happen to know that for a fact. So I also feel like, I don't know anybody else who ever did anything like that. Phi Beta Kappa and summa cum laude in 3 years. And he's gone on to have a very, very successful career as a master of the universe. And now he's kind of, one of the things he does now is he clips things out of publications, physical publications, that he thinks may trigger an interest in his friends, and he puts them in envelopes, and he sends them out. So I have 3 Mr. Carp envelopes here. If necessary, I could open any one of them. Usually, as I say, I wait for you to ask me. But if it turns out we can never get any of you on the air, then that won't happen. But we have those. So I don't want you to panic any more than I'm panicking right now. All right. I am going to try just a different phone line just to see how we're doing. This would be, if we were lucky, Margaret from Waterbury. Margaret, are you there? No, we're still not doing that. Okay. So some other things to tell you about, including stuff that's going on this week here on the show. First of all, tomorrow I will be appearing at 9 o'clock with Frankie Graziano, on Where We Live in a political roundtable that will also involve Jonathan Wharton and Christine Stewart. And it will have certain echoes of a political roundtable show we used to have on this radio station. And I don't know. I mean, it's almost been forgotten in the mists of history. Could it possibly be coming back? Anyway, we're going to be talking about the beginning of the legislative session, which starts tomorrow, and other stuff too. But, things that are like big priorities this year and all that kind of stuff. We're also going to be doing an episode on Thursday about recaps, like TV and movie recaps. Well, I guess TV recaps and episode recaps. I guess that's what it's called. So if I had my iPad with me, I would know exactly what it was called. But I'm going to say it's episode recaps because we're increasingly reliant on those. It's, I don't know if like when Homer was doing the Iliad, as oral epic poetry, he would like do maybe a little recap right before, right before he did the latest installment, previously on the Iliad. But anyway, we're going to do a whole thing about episode recaps. Who does them, what purpose they have. And I'm intrigued by And I think senior producer Lily Tyson is working on this aspect of it now. I'm intrigued by have you noticed how difficult it is to remember what happened on shows that you watch pretty regularly? I mean, I'm getting older, and so life seems increasingly disconnected to me. But I mean, I think everybody's having this problem a little bit. It's also just there's a lot of prestige television. There's a lot of things to watch, a lot of things that we are watching. And so you need this, right? You need to I'll tell you one thing. One of the great inventions, obviously, in fact, we should stop saying they put a man on the moon or it's the greatest thing since sliced bread because, I mean, those are old technological innovations. We should be saying things like they invented a skip intro button or skip ad button, but they invented a skip intro button, and why can't they do X, Y, Z? Anyway, one thing I never do is skip the recap because I'm never completely sure I know what happened previously. Anyway, all of that. I mean, we probably will talk to a neuroscientist about why people have trouble remembering, something really dire that might have happened on your favorite show last week. So that'll be Thursday, and then Friday we'll be doing the nose. I'm in such great shape right now. I've already seen everything that we're going to talk about on the nose. That includes a Netflix series called The Recruit, which is I shouldn't say what I think about it, right? That'll be a spoiler. And then White Noise, which is Noah Baumbach's movie adaptation of the 1985 novel by Don DeLillo. A very important novel in my life. I probably read it 3 times. I watched the movie last night, and then I went up into our Mayor of Easttown type attic and rifled through boxes until I found my copy of White Noise for the nose in a box and took it downstairs and started reading it again. So, but I shouldn't say what I thought of any of that stuff. So that's all stuff that's kind of happening this week. I should also say unfolding right now, something that we could talk about if it were ever possible to talk to anybody, would be the election for Speaker in the House of Representatives in Washington, D.C. Kevin McCarthy obviously was the putative new Speaker, and it's apparently not going well at all. It's going so poorly that some of the more radical and dysfunctional segments of the Republican House caucus have suggested that if they are sufficiently displeased with McCarthy and they can't get what they want, they'll throw it to plurality, and Hakeem Jeffries, who is scheduled to become the Democratic minority leader, would become Speaker of the House, and that they can live with that. And if you can think about that for a second, I'm not the first person to make this observation, but if you're a chaos muppet, which is to say if you're Lauren Boebert, Matt Gaetz, Jim Jordan to some degree, who all these, Marjorie Taylor Greene, if you're a chaos muppet, you might enjoy being in a numerical majority party where the speaker is from the other party, right? Because you could cause even more trouble, or at least you can thrive. That's like a petri dish for you. So anyway, that's going on right now, and we're going to take a little break right now. I am going to issue a prayer to the radio gods that service be restored. But if it doesn't, it won't be the first time I talked for 49 minutes. I've done this before. I know I could do it again. We'll be back.
Here but for fortune, placed by fate's mysterious schemes. Who'd believe that we're the ones asked to try to rekindle the patriot's dreams? Arise, sweet destiny, time runs short. All of your patience has heard their retort. Hear us now, for alone we can't see, to try to rekindle the patriot's dream.
Texas. Strange parrots fall out from the sky. Smashing Baghdad on the Hudson and Panther Martin's eyes. He's out outside with a candy amarillo. Scarlet getting 27 stitches in his head. With a pint of green chartreuse, ain't nothing seems right. You bought a Sunday paper on a Saturday night. Cats in the thunder.
All right, we're back. This is Ask or Tell Me Anything. It's the kind of show that we do once in a while where we just have phone callers. We don't book guests. There's a slight problem, which is that we cannot currently hear the phone callers, nor can they hear me. So we have like a couple of different possible. We have a couple of different possible ways that we might get through this, including Kat is offering to come on the air and talk to me about poor Jeremy Renner. Hope he's okay. But anyway, we can get to that if we have to. But right now, I think it's sort of, there's always a little chance that we're making radio history here. So I'm going to try to do this by myself for a second. Meanwhile, Jonathan McPants has come up with a really good idea, which is I can see what each caller, we have 4 callers who are still hanging on the board. I can see on the screen what each caller wants to talk about. Oh, and I think we're getting ready to do a test here. So let's try Margaret just for fun. They've all been on hold for a while, but hi, Margaret, you're on the air. Except you're not on. You guys were just playing with my emotions in there. They told me to try a call. All right, so no, Margaret is not there. Let me get her back on hold. But I know what Margaret wants to talk about. I know what everybody wants to talk about. I may not know in detail what they want to talk about, but I know what they want to talk about. So I'm just gonna have both sides of the conversation. All right, are you ready? Okay. Our first caller here is Tom from Milford. Hey, Colin, first-time caller. He might not be a first-time caller, but Colin, I was reading somewhere where you were saying that he's also a Muppet, by the way. I don't think I mentioned that. I was just, I think I heard that you mainly listen to music on a service like Spotify or Tidal or whatever, and that you make playlists, and that's how you listen to things. So I was wondering if you could just talk a little bit about about why you do that. And how come you don't listen to albums, man? Well, thanks, Tom. It's a great question. Thanks for calling. And I would say the reason that I do this, I don't know about the reason I do this, but let me just elaborate on this. So, back in the old days, you'd save up your money, you'd buy, Revolver or something, you bring it home, you listen to the whole album, and you listen to it 20 more times. All kinds of alarming things are happening on my computer screen right now. So, and we've changed, right? Most people have one of these services. And so how does that affect things? Well, it can affect things any number of ways. I mean, the amazing part of it is, much to the financial detriment of musical artists, you can have almost any album you want at any given moment you want, or any cut of any album you want. And so I have fallen into the practice of making playlists. And a lot of times what I'll do is I'll maybe go through, I happen to use a service called Tidal. It's very similar to Spotify and the other ones as well. And it's Tidal. And I'll just, it'll suggest stuff to me, and I'll just go through things, and, I'll listen a little bit, and if I like something, I'll pull it off and put it into one of my playlists. And then I'll be listening to my playlists, which means that you have to constantly glance down at your phone to try to figure out what it is you're listening to. This was going on right before I came here. And so, it's the interesting part of it for me is if you do that, then one of the things that you do notice is what makes you jerk your head up. What makes you go, hey, what was that? What was that? Because half the time the stuff I put on the playlist, I've only given a cursory listen to. So over time, for example, there's an artist named Aoife O'Donovan. A-O-I-F-E is, for some reason, how you spell Aoife. And I just noticed that every time my head would bob up, like, hey, what's that? The high percentage of the time, it was Aoife O'Donovan, partly because of the way she sings, also the way she writes. The songs are just very kind of exciting and interesting. And in a way, it does help you understand what kind of music really wins over your attention. There are a lot of downsides to it, including just never really fully coming to grips with anybody's work or oeuvre or I mean, there's some bad things to it. But I feel like I learn a lot about music that way, and I have a little bit more time I don't have more time. I have more opportunities to decide, hey, you know this Brian Eno guy? He's not just some weird guy that Dankosky likes. He's kind of cool on his own basis. Oh, people are coming in here. There's this whole NASA thing now. There's like a pit crew coming in to try to fix stuff. So anyway, I hope that answers Tom's question. I don't think it's the best way in the world to listen to music, but I think it's kind of where an awful lot of us are right now. And probably there will be a restoration at some point of the album and of the idea that things deserve a little bit more of our full attention. And I mean, I totally get why it's wrong what I do. And I'm also being told that we may be ready to try something. All right, so we're going to try Anthony on line 1. Hi, Anthony.
Hi, Colin.
Oh my God! Look, there's first of all, there's like an Apollo Soyuz celebration going on in the control room right now. We just docked our space stations. It wasn't easy, or maybe an Apollo 13 would be a better comparison. But anyway, they're very happy there in the control room. All right, Anthony, you have the floor. And by the way, to everybody else, you can now call 888-720-WNPR, 888-720-9677. All right, Anthony, the floor is yours.
So when you when you watch a movie, at the end, there's a long list of credits, and everybody gets credited, including the caterer. But if you buy a book and you open the front pages, there are very few credits. So my question is, why does a caterer get a credit in a movie, but a book editor who may have had a significant influence in shaping the book or even commissioning the book, why don't they get a credit?
Well, typically, I mean, not with every single book, but typically the book version of this is often at the back. It's called acknowledgments typically, and it'll you've read these, you know what they get. Sometimes it'll be, forget about the caterer, it'll be like, I'd like to thank the guys down at the Good News Garage because they were really helping me out when I was having a problem with the Mazda. I don't think I would have gotten the book done if you hadn't done that. They thank everybody, or they can thank almost anybody. So, it's not that it doesn't happen, but I think the underlying premise of your question is an interesting one, and it's book editors, what do they do, right?
Right. So, and if they're acknowledged at the end of the book, that's, through the grace of the author, but it's not required. No. Like it is in a movie or in a music album, although we don't have physical albums anymore, I imagine there's a list of credits for everyone, including the re-recording mixers. But it's striking to me that book editors that's not a sort of custom or practice to credit them at the beginning of the book.
Right. So let me say a couple more things about that, which is, and I'm maybe not as up to date as I could be with the publishing industry, not having written a book in a while, but I have written books. And, I think increasingly there are fewer. I mean, the era of Max Perkins is over. Maxwell Perkins kind of famously is the guy who guided stuff like, Look Homeward Angel to its destination and stuff. And even more recently, my first book, in fact, I was sort of acquired as an author before I'd even produced a book. And the guy who did it was a guy named Herman Golub, who was this legendary editor who, I guess I can say this now, I don't know, is everybody, all the necessary people are dead. There was a rumor, for example, that he'd essentially written Shogun by James Clavell, that given the shape that it was in, he really, but I think, with each passing year, the number of editors who really put pencil to paper or whatever the digital equivalent of that is and really reshape prose dwindles a little bit more in favor of acquisition editors. Now, you still have, legendary editors. There's one who is married to one of our regular guests here and who is very importantly Barack Obama's book editor, and he'll go wherever she is. He'll go to, if she's changed houses, he's going to follow her. It's like that. And I think editors can be really, really important when you have an author who, Obama is clearly a writer. And in fact, his editor, whom I obviously know, has assured me he is a writer and he writes and she edits. But sometimes with with people who are not maybe first and foremost writers, you really need that editor. Obviously, they're just, they're not in the habit of doing it. Or I'm in the middle right now of reading Mary Rogers' book, Shy, where the critic Jesse Green clearly has taken a really amorphous kind of, I hate to say scatterbrained, but not particularly through-line oriented manuscript and kind of knocked it into shape without necessarily costing the manuscript its playfulness, and Mary's discursive way of jumping from subject to subject and staying out of chronological order and stuff. So there's still a world where that happens, but I think it happens less and less, and I think that's too bad too. You have the floor.
Well, I hear what you're saying. I guess really my question or my thoughts were, whether it had anything to do with sort of a marketing idea that the author was the master of this work and didn't really have a lot of help with it, if that played a role in it.
I wouldn't say that never is the case. But I think most people, once again, if you look at those acknowledgments things, which, as you say, are volitional, but pretty de rigueur at this point, too. It's rare. It's very rare that you don't get, it used to be maybe you got, half, 3/4 of a page. Now the acknowledgments go on for pages. They mention everybody they ever knew. So I think it's more settled and agreed upon that it does take a village to do a book. So there's a little bit more acknowledgement of the role that your agent plays, or your whole agency and everybody who works at your agency, and they've all got to be named. It's like Oscar acceptance speeches now. I don't know how many authors are super sensitive about the idea that an editor did some of the work. I think the other thing is a lot of stuff in movies is ruled not only by convention, but sometimes by contract or by union contract. There are rules about who has to get acknowledged and stuff like that. So it may also be that there's no corresponding set of requirements. Book authors can do whatever they want to do. Although if you're smart and you plan to write a second book, you acknowledge everybody who really did help you. Because it's a very tough business, and you might as well have everybody on your side that you can possibly get. It's a really interesting question, though, Anthony. Not one I was expecting today, but that is just fine. All right, we've tried to put her on the air 16 times. I think this 17 is a charm. Here's Margaret in Waterbury. Hi, Margaret.
Hi, how are you?
Just fine.
That's good. My question to you is, or I'm just looking for somebody else's insight on this. I like to watch all the movies that are up for possible acknowledgments at the Oscars. And to name 5, Triangle of Sadness, The Menu, The Whale, Babylon, and White Lotus, they're all about excess, very, extreme excess. And I don't know, it just dawned on me that was the case, and I'm wondering why now it's so much, if anybody has any explanation for that.
Yeah, I would just like to sort of add one little wrinkle here, which is that several of the things that you mentioned are not up for Oscars because they are TV series. I'm sorry, White Lotus, but yeah, that is one. But all the others I believe are. Yeah, isn't The Menu a TV series? Do I have that wrong?
No, that was just the movies.
Okay.
No, yeah. All the others are definitely movies.
All right.
Yeah.
So, I think, first of all, it is interesting. What you're doing, I think, is really interesting. Mining things for trends and wondering what that means. And I think, to take White Lotus as an interesting example, clearly Mike White, the showrunner and the auteur, doesn't really have a whole lot of love in his heart for these people. On the other hand, he also can't stay away from them. And I think that often describes an attitude that you'll see, in some of these places, that you'll see people drawn to things that repulse them. I'll give you another example. It does not exactly in excess, but we've spent an enormous amount of time in 2022. I think excess actually isn't the wrong term, with the royal family, right? The Crown, which is absolutely fascinating. I can't take my eyes off it. I watch, the episodes pretty fast every season. And then the death of the Queen herself and the fabulous Q, people waiting to say goodbye to her. And then Harry and Meghan with their advertisement for themselves, which, has done very well on Netflix. I wouldn't have expected people to be that interested in these two people, basically. And these are incredibly wealthy and privileged people, and I think people often tune in thinking, I hate these people, or, these people are no better than me. I'm going to watch them just to satisfy myself that that's the case. But I think, and I don't know if this is what you're getting at, Margaret, but I think there's an attraction there as well. I think people, you want to fantasize about maybe being in that world, or go ahead.
So that's what the crowd wants to see. That's what you're saying?
Well, I mean, it could also be that auteurs are, think about Succession as another example. These are fabulously rich people who are horrible. Almost everybody on the series is really, really horrible. And so you can watch it. You can kind of hate watch them. But I think it goes beyond that. There's something really entertaining and thrilling about seeing that world. And we've kind of been doing that forever, right? I mean, we did it, decades ago with Falcon Crest and Knots Landing in Dallas. We're doing it now to a certain degree with Yellowstone and stuff like that, and the Dutton family, who are also I don't know, John Dutton would say they're really not rich, but they're sure as hell richer than you and me.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. You help me out there.
Well, I could be wrong about all that, but I think it's what they sometimes call in psychoanalysis approach avoidance. You want to come near it, and you're also repelled by it. I think that might be what's going on here. All right, we're favoring anybody who called in at the beginning of the show and went through the long winter of our inability to get calls on the air. Here is Jeff in Hamden. Hi, Jeff.
Hi there. Thanks for taking my call.
You're quite welcome.
I've been listening to your show for decades, so it's exciting to be on your show. So I guess the topic I want to talk to you about is music, generally, maybe more specifically, tribute acts. I just so happen to be the founder of the premier tribute to the Cars in Connecticut. You and Ray Hardman on social media a couple of times, so now here's my opportunity to reach out to you in person and just invite you to see Candio. We're really enthused about the quality of tribute that we're paying to such an iconic music group, and we think that our excitement translates to concert goers.
Well, I have so many questions for you.
Okay.
Let's begin with. So, how long have you been doing the Cars tribute band? How old is it?
Since just before COVID, I started it. It's been a revolving door of musicians, as lots of bands, as it happens with lots of bands. But we have a solid core group now. It's fantastic. I can't believe I'm a part of this.
All right, so that answer didn't really sort of help me pin down what I really want to know, which is, so in 2019, Rick Ocasek died, and I was sort of wondering what it would be like to be, in a Cars tribute band and have a rather unexpected death of the preeminent member of the band. So were you guys already up and running when that happened?
Yeah, so at that time, I was actually coincidentally assuming the vocals for both deceased band members.
Mm-hmm.
I had been doing this at least a year or so before Rick passed away, sadly. It's anyway, I shifted and pivoted to, my first instrument is drums, so now I'm the drummer of this group, very happily. And we got an amazing lead singer from Trumbull, Connecticut, who's been, seducing audiences with his charm. So it's I don't know how to answer your question in terms of, like, are you saying it's difficult to step up and
well, I would imagine that it would change the entire chemistry in the sense of, not so much the chemistry of the band. I don't know about that, but the chemistry of the performer relating to the template that he's paying tribute to, and the relationship with the audience. The audience is, maybe suddenly in a little. If you love the Cars enough to go see a Cars tribute band, you're probably in a different mood post October 2019 than you were pre-October 2019. And you may be even more impassioned about Rick Ocasek and his work, but you're also kind of sad too. I'm just sort of wondering whether it's just going to cast a pall over things or made it seem like an even more urgent mission or whatever.
Yeah, this. I kind of, before you took my call, I'm thinking, I kind of make this connection to the work I've done in preservation Throughout my lifetime, I've worked in media preservation, including preservation department at Yale Library for many years. And I've always appreciated the work of Vivian Perlis, Alan Lomax, all these folks just like recorded stuff just to preserve it for future research and stuff like that. And the work that I'm doing in music now, I feel also especially excited about because I'm really connected with a lot of this great music personally, and I feel like there's an act of preservation here where, the urgency has actually stepped up, coincidentally, with this group because both of the singers for this band are no longer with us, and this is stuff that really shouldn't be forgotten about. I mean, I find it really not just personally important to me, but I just feel like there's now this void. Nobody's going to be doing this again, and I feel like tribute acts in general are the I don't know what other word to use right now, but band-aid. But to patch that hole, that void in our culture that people have come to develop and appreciate over time. This is the kind of music that there's no second act. There's no.
Yeah. No. So
Rick Ocasek's son is actually currently making music. But it's not the Cars, obviously, and I don't know. It's it's kind of a service to fill a void with these tribute bands.
So I'm going to, first of all, by way of thanking you for calling in and for sitting on hold for a while we solved our technical difficulties, my gift to you, because now I knew you're a bit of a preservationist and a music kind of guy, a piece that I just encountered this morning, although it's from May of last year in the Washingtonian publication. The headline is "The Untold Story of the White House's Weirdly Hip Record Collection," subtitled "Jimmy Carter's Grandson is Unlocking Its Mysteries." So it turns out that the White House has, it's all off-site because it has to be, but this gigantic vinyl album collection, a lot of it I think given to it by the RIAA, the Recording Industry Association of America, curated first by Johnny Mercer, then by John Hammond, and one of Jimmy Carter's grandchildren, who's a fully grown person now, discovered this. And it's like not really talked about or anything. And so he's working on figuring out what's there and helping to catalog it and stuff like that. So I predict that you will enjoy this article, and good luck. And I should think of a very quippy way to say goodbye using a Cars title, but I'm too stressed out. So we'll stop there. Thanks to Jeff. We're going to take a break. We're going to come back. We can really get phone calls now, so feel free to call 888-720-WNPR, 888-720-9677. Well done. Well done.
Who's gonna tell you when it's too late? Who's gonna tell you things aren't so great? You can't go on.
Based on anecdotal evidence, I would say that if you line 10 people, randomly selected people up, 2 of them will have been in an 80s tribute band. For example, Mr. McVance, our producer today, was in an 80s tribute band. And then, Jeff was in an 80s tribute band. I used to be called up on stage. There was an 80s tribute band called OPM. And they would make me go up on stage and sing Pump It Up, the Elvis Costello tune, which is a hard song to sing because the lyrics have no particular – one thing doesn't really follow from another. I've come to really appreciate lyrics where, like the way you look tonight or something, you kind of know what's coming next. You can just think about what's probably coming next. But anyway, people to thank. Well, now moving to the top of the list is Gina Matruda, who figured out what was wrong for 35 minutes and fixed it, and now we're back on the air doing the show that we were supposed to. Kat Pastor's our technical producer. Jonathan McPence, mentioned many times already today, is the producer of the episode, the call screener, and the guy who's so nimble that he manages to get a Cars song to end this segment with Jeff. It's not like we had any time to plan that. All right, so we're going to go back to the calls now. Our number, should I give it 888-720-WNPR. Here's one of the superstars of these shows. and she's actually moved now on to other kinds of things that we do, like our Citizen Observer program. This would be Iman from New Haven. Hi, you're on the air.
Hi, how are you, Colin?
Good.
So my question for you is sort of a hypothetical. Imagine that all beings, before they end up on Earth, get to choose how they're embodied, like anything from trees, fungus, humans, whatever. I guess it's a three-part question. First, would you recommend to a being to choose being a human? And two, what would you actually recommend about our species? Why choose being a human? And maybe you feel they shouldn't choose a human. Why not? That's what my question
All right,
is.
this is fascinating, but let me just make sure I get the parameters right too. So the person, the entity that I'm addressing is some kind of entity, some kind of soul that has never before been incarnated, and is just and it's like a Cheesecake Factory. They're looking at the menu, and they're thinking, otter looks good, it's like that. Okay, so what I recommend, for sake of discussion, I am going to say no, and here's why. And it's perhaps a little bit of a product of just having watched the movie White Noise. I think there's great things about being a human being, obviously. We can each make our own list of them. But the hardest thing is the consciousness of death, right? The notion that's present in us in a way that it is probably not present in other animals. It does seem as though other species have some recognition of death, that elephants can understand that another elephant is dead, stuff like that. But I don't think they walk around all the time thinking about the fact that they're going to die. And I think that's a very high price to pay for human status. So that's one reason I might tell this hypothetical entity, well, you might have a lot more fun being an otter, actually, and less to worry about, although, once in a while an osprey comes and eats you or something. But that can happen to any species. And then I think the other thing that we have to think about here in the Anthropocene age is that, I would want this entity to know that the rest of the Earth, to the extent that it could express preferences, would probably prefer this particular species go away before it wrecks everything. It's not as though we're like this exalted presence on Earth anymore. It's clear we're the biggest problem the planet has right now. And we are causing a lot of problems for an awful lot of other life forms. So, if you really want to, you could, I suppose, insist on being born into the body of someone who has the potential to become a climate activist and make things better, But I don't know. I don't think it's a layup anyway that you want to be a human. I don't know. What do you think?
I sort of agree with you. I think that, humans have the potential, obviously, to create art and make music and plan amazing things, but all of that sort of strategic thinking leads us to worry a lot. And I think that's what you're talking about with worrying about death. We do spend, not even death, just everything. Humans worry about everything, and it causes us a lot of unhappiness. So that is something, I see my dog, and I asked her the same question on a walk yesterday, what would she recommend to this being in terms of being a dog? And she said many things about smelling things and being present and being in the moment. I was that makes a lot of sense. And humans don't have to work really hard to get back to that, which is unfortunate.
Well, I think we all ought to make a little bit of an effort here to sniff the ground, a couple of times a day. I'm out with my dog a lot. He does all the ground sniffing. I'm doing other stuff. I'm worrying. I'm walking around worrying. I'm walking around worrying, going, what if I get on the air and the phones don't work? Oh, my God, what would I do? All right, we only have time for just a few more calls, and they all look very interesting. All right, so let's start. Oh, no, she's not there right now. Now she is. Okay, here's Jackie in Lebanon. Hi, Jackie, you're on the air.
Hi, Colin. It's nice to hear your voice. Oh, obviously, I hear your voice a lot, but it's such a lot of energy. I just wanted to mention a few things. Life, as it was spoken about with the last individual, is a learning school, and it serves the purpose rather well, because having lived thousands upon thousands of life, you can come up with a very wise and loving and all things that are really beautiful expressions. And that comes from Earth School, at least this one. I just wanted to mention a couple of things like the question that's asked, you know, we're trying to contact, see if there's anyone else except us. And on and on and on they go. And I don't know if they noticed that in London, the fields were turning into geodesic and all kinds of
like crop circles and stuff like that, right?
Thank you. Yes. I mean, if that's not communication, what in heaven's name is?
You know, I think it's a very, very complicated situation. And I would love to talk to you at greater length, but we're literally almost out of time. Although I haven't mentioned this before on the air, and I'm a little reluctant to mention it right now because I think it might cause some trouble. But so Lily Tyson, who's the senior producer of the show, you know, her position is that she's very concerned about extraterrestrial life. She doesn't think we should contact them. She's sort of in the Stephen Hawking camp. So she says, you know, that it's risky. We shouldn't be sending stuff out there, all this kind of stuff. I'm starting to wonder if this is kind of, you know, a little bit of a double blind. I'm wondering whether this is a Le Carré novel, except that it's about an extraterrestrial who, in order to escape detection, says all the time how worried. Like, if you were an extraterrestrial living among terrestrial people, wouldn't one of your possible strategies be to claim that you are worried about extraterrestrials? Do you see what I'm saying? I'm feeling like maybe I'm being played here a little bit. She obviously has some powers that are not ordinary for human beings. I saw her put her hand down on a live hot burner and blue smoke poured out of it. She didn't appear to be hurt at all. I'm starting to wonder with this whole, we should be so worried about ET stuff from Lily Tyson is, in fact, a way of concealing her true identity. And we are going to have to stop there. But thanks to everybody. I'm so sorry, by the way, to Stephen, David, Levi, Michael. I would have loved to talk to all of you. You all had interesting topics. And it just worked out a certain way today.
From time